Hey guys, just going to walk you through installing your new belt kit on your Katapo or Taniwha. So if you guys are getting belt kits, they'll turn up like this. And so in here, there's one small box and your belt specific stage. So in the little box, so manual, belt, other bits and pieces. I've actually laid out some stuff over here. It's a little bit easier to see. So this is basically all the stuff that you're going to need to do your belt replacement, as well as all the parts. The only difference that some of you will notice is these guys here, which they will only come if you're getting a Taniwha upgrade. The Katapo ones will actually work on the belt setup, so that is the only difference between the two. So what we'll do, I'll go through and we will do a replacement on my bike here, and I'll talk you guys through it and yeah, see how it goes. Cool. So to start with, because of the brake mount on these guys, it is easiest to let a bit of air out, just so this will clear the mount. So I've actually already let some air out of here. So 4mm on the inside, 5mm on the outside. Loosen those. If you put a little bit of pressure on the 4mm, it will help push that larger shaft out. It can be a little bit sticky sometimes. If they are, just take that bolt, take the washer off it, and thread that in there, and then it actually will push all the way through and just give you something to push on. Cool. So there are 4 little washers that sit all in here, so you can take that last bolt out. Just watch that you don't lose anything. Best bet is to just slowly slide it until you can see them, and then pinch them at either end and slowly take down like that. Cool. And so you'll notice with the washers, one side has a bit of a curved lip to it and the other side doesn't, so you just need to make sure that that flatter edge sits up against the bearings. Cool. So now that's done, this bolt on this side here, so I'll spin that way a bit. So if you get 5mm Allen key, just hold your stay so it doesn't pop up. Oh, loosen that. Cool, so it's got a wee cone that basically expands that shaft and allows it to hold it in place. Take that. And then an 8mm Allen key, which will sit in there, make sure it's in nice and firm, and then that will actually be what loosens that whole shaft. Just watch, because there is a nut on that other side that will come out. Sometimes it's just held in by the bolt, so if you can hold your finger on it while you turn, just make sure it's not popping out. Cool, and then slide that out. Awesome, so that could fall, but usually just sort of holds in nicely. That bolt that I just took out is the one that Katapo owners will reuse, but if you've got a Taniwha, you need to swap that. And with these guys, just sort of gently line it up and slide that out, like so. Cool. So installing the new stay. So again, same as we took it out, they are a little firm, but just line that up, sort of wiggle it in. and then get a new shaft. Put a little bit of grease on it, some threads, a little bit through there. Cute. And then again, line that up to that point, and then grab that new nut, which will be a little bit thinner than the existing Taniwhao ones. Cool. It's firm. If you are looking for any torque settings, feel free to just have a look at our manual, which you'll be able to find online. And then again, little cone and nut, a little bit of grease. So one more thing to mention as well, if you are going on a Taniwha and you're coming from a chain to a belt, your adapter will look like this to this, so you will actually need a new brake adapter, but you'll be able to go into any local bike shop and get a 160 to 180 post-to-post mount for the rear, and you'll be good to go. So now, next thing, pretty crucial, don't forget to put the belt in before you do the back end of the bike up. So trying not to kink it. That, so teeth in the middle. Just make sure it runs through here. So essentially, if you, it's like you're sort of throwing it through the back, but then lift that bit up. Cool. So now we're just going to do these back pivots. And so some of you may have something like this at home. It is just the end of a Sharpie. It actually works quite well to line everything up before you put the bolt in. So if you do have one of those, that would be very handy. So these two washers for this left hand side, you need to make sure that the one with the little lip on there, that interacts with the face of that bearing, and then that sort of smoother curved edge sits outwards. So if you line those two up roughly there, and then slide this up, let's put this through just to hold it. Wiggle that round. Cool. Now, get your next two washers. So what I do is sort of go for the side that has the smallest gap. So just pop that in there and that should hold. And then this is where it gets a little tricky. Just slowly pull it back just to the point that you can slide that second washer in there. Cool. And slide that back up. Might need a little bit of jigging around, so if you need to, let's grab an Allen key. That. All. Cool. So, there's your little bolt from there. Again, just a little bit of grease on it. Just follow that through. Cool. If it doesn't go all the way in, just by pushing it, it will pull in slightly. So we'll do that one and now. Yeah. Same sort of thing. Cool. So yeah, if you are pushing those in, you don't have one of these, just make sure that everything is lined up and it's not going to be hitting on any washers or anything like that. The back end is all done up and tight. Got that belt sitting in there, and so what we're going to do next is put together our tensioner and guard. So you'll need these two little bolts that hold the two together, which come in a wee pack like that. And so you need to make sure that the guard sits on top of the tensioner, and so the tensioner will be the one touching the gearbox. So you need a 3mm Allen key down here. Got these two threaded holes in the gearbox itself, so if you line those up, make sure they're both in the right spot. Cool. That is the tensioner. We're good. Cool. So up next we'll put on our front belt ring. To do this, obviously we need our lock ring as well as the pinion lock ring tool. If you got this far, then you already have this tool and know how it works. So it's pretty easy. Your lock ring is going to be reverse thread. So do this guy on here. And there, it's quite good. It is normally it will hold itself on just by the tensioner. Cool. So I like to just do that by hand to begin with. Cool. And so you do want to go up to 40 Newton meters on this guy, so it's going to be pretty firm. If you're in your easiest gear as well, you'll find you're not working against the gearbox and you'll actually be able to get it quite a bit tighter. Cool. Sweet. And so now it's time to put the wheel on. So with your wheel, belts can be very finicky in terms of making sure you have a perfectly straight line for your belt. So what I would recommend is sit your ring onto your free hub, tighten the lock ring by hand, and then put it on. I'll show you where it should roughly line up to, and then when you're happy with it, tighten it. The only reason I say that is if you get it wrong and you need to adjust where your spacers sit, you do need a relatively specific tool or something homemade to actually get it off. So the tool that we use is this one here. Park Tool BDT-1 is essentially like a chain whip for belts. We're going to put in the back wheel. So the axle nut you will need to keep from your old stay to put into the new one. So it's pretty straightforward. That'll just slot in there. Move it so it sits flush like that, out slightly. Cool. And so now we're going to put in the back wheel. So you will need this. This is the guide, and this will help keep the belt on the rear sprocket. So, if we start with the the belt off the front cogs, normally with a brake on, pull that up and slot your brake rotor into the caliper, and make sure that your belt is sitting nicely on that rear sprocket. So now, if you can slide that in between the frame and the sprocket, and then your axle will line up and go through there. Do watch when you're tightening it up that you hold that axle nut in the other end, because you don't want to push it out and have it spinning and damaging anything. Cool. And so as I said before, you want to make sure that your belt is sitting roughly where it is, or sort of where that masking tape is. So that's going to give you a pretty good chain line. If it's sitting around there, then cool. Tighten up that lock ring and you should be good to go. If you do install it all and you find that there is a bit of a clicking noise, it can be due to the fact that the belt isn't lining up perfectly, and therefore you may need to adjust your spacers slightly to go from there. That's on. So now, getting it onto the front of the bike. So you need to make sure that we don't damage the belt at all. At the moment, because our shock is fully compressed, we will need to reinflate that just so that we get enough slack to put it on safely. So now that the shock is reinflated, give us a bit more room to install the belt. So starting from the top, just line that up nicely. And so again, you don't want to kink it or anything like that. So if you can pull down on that side, pull down on that tensioner, line it all up there. Cool. Now that is all sitting on, good to go. So just to triple check, pedal it through. As long as you're not hearing any unusual clicking noises or any resistance in the belt, then you should be good to go. Awesome. And so final step before we finish off. Yeah. Cheers.